Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Swai. You can also call me Promo Guy. My guest today is Lee Wochner, CEO and Creative Strategist of Counterintuity. Lee is a great networker. I'm going to look forward to your conversation with Lee. And he's also a leading provider for marketing initiative to nonprofit, government agency, and purpose-driven organization. We're going to have some fun talking about how finding the right marketing strategy, especially for nonprofit leadership and the private sector. How are you doing, Lee?
I'm doing great. It's really nice to be here with you right now, Swire.
Would you mind to give the listener a quick bio and then what your role are within digital marketing?
Sure. I'm a partner in a digital marketing agency here in Burbank called Counterintuity. We do more than digital. We're a full service marketing firm. My background is I'm originally from New Jersey. I started my career working for newspapers. I was, as a boy in high school, I took newspaper ads, classified ads over the phone. I talked my way into that job at age 14.
Wow.
Yeah, I was persistent. They didn't want to interview a 14-year-old boy to talk to subscribers and take ads over the phone, but I could type 86 words a minute.
Wow.
I'm good on the phone, and they were just then transitioning into computers, and the computer didn't intimidate me. So I started there, and then actually after college, I went back and was hired as an editor. I was a newspaper reporter and editor for Gannett, for a whole bunch of newspapers around the country, and then for the Atlantic City Press for some years. And then I came out here to graduate school. I have a master's degree in professional writing from University of Southern California. And of course, throughout there, I did a lot of corporate writing and marketing writing. And eventually, I started this company with a partner. I was doing marketing strategy, and she was doing marketing design and building digital and all of that. And so we merged our companies. And that's my 30-second bio.
Thanks for sharing that. And I know that your niche, I would call it your specialties, is you have both been on boards for nonprofits, and you also have a lot of clients in the nonprofit sector. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've sat on a lot of nonprofit boards. At the moment, I sit on 3.
Wow.
I believe. They're not kidding when they say we're all in this together. I mean, there's no next door on planet Earth. We're all on the same planet, and I really believe in nonprofits and what they do, and I believe in well-run government. I've tried to be a good citizen and feed back into the trough, so to speak. And yes, we have a number of nonprofit clients.
Well, I want to ask you more than for nonprofit marketing, because when we say nonprofit, I'm really using a really big word. We have, obviously big nonprofits, right? That, exactly know why they need to market. We also have our mid-market, right? We maybe a few million plus, but we also have our local nonprofits, which might be run by just volunteers. They have no budget. Sometimes when we talk about marketing, a nonprofit, we think about, we're a nonprofit, we don't make money. Why do we need to marketing? How would you advise them if they have a mindset like that?
Well, the first thing I would say, and everybody working for a nonprofit as a volunteer or staff knows that money is not the entirety of it, right? Sometimes you have more money and sometimes you don't. The real question is about strategy. What are you trying to accomplish? What are your goals? And with any sort of client, look, the human brain is wired to say no. I mean, we just are, right? To say no means to protect yourself. From an evolutionary perspective, we're fear-driven, right? Don't go too far afield. There's a tiger out there that will eat you, whatever the other problem is. But entrepreneurs know that to resist that. Entrepreneurs know to go after the opportunity. And people running nonprofits, of course, are trying to make an improvement in the world. And so they also tend to be opportunity focused about solving problems. So the immediate thought, of course, is I can't do that. I don't have what I need to do that. And when I work with clients, and our whole agency does this, we ask them, what is it you would like to do, right? What would make the biggest impact? And then let's talk about how to do what you would like to do that would make the biggest impact. And sometimes the answer is yes, let's go find the money. Other times it's like, you know what, here's the money we have, and here's what we could do with the money we have. And actually, there's a lot we could do by thinking about this a little differently. And so entrepreneurs are by nature wired to do that. And that's what makes entrepreneurs a little bit different. And so one of the things I try to help nonprofits do is to focus on opportunities, focus on impact, look at the resources you have, ask yourself the resources that you need to get that would really help you effectuate that, and make that part of the strategy, as opposed to just assuming offhand that you can't succeed because you're lacking something. I just think that even a 1% improvement makes a manifest improvement around the world. If you fix something by 1% and I fix it by 1% and so does somebody else, it multiplies exponentially.
Okay. So it's just, I think it's the mindset that people do. And I think you mentioned more than a few times already, you need to have a strategy. Why is strategies important in marketing? Why don't just kind of like Nike said, just do it? Why do we develop strategies?
Well, so Nike has had a multi-billion-dollar strategy behind rolling out that phrase. So I'll give you a real world example. So my wife and I are doing all sorts of improvements around the house. And we've lived in our house since 1996. Oh, things falling out. Since 1996. And finally, Swire, we're getting around to some things. We've been kind of busy doing other things, right? And so when you go into our carport, we have like a lanai area under our carport where people can sit and visit and such. And there are fans with lights, and the controls are inside the garage. And so that's a pain in the neck. You'd have to go open the garage door, raise the garage door to turn the lights on or off. And then frankly, my garage is filled with stuff and people will see what's in the garage. And I don't really want to do that. So I said to Valerie, why don't we get an electrician out here to tell us what it would cost to move the light switch box outside, out where we would be sitting. So we had one electrician come out and another electrician to come out, and they say, here's what it's going to cost to run the electrical pipe, and here's what it's going to cost to put the fitting in and the wiring, and then you're going to have to do some repair to that wall and paint it and everything. And they gave us estimates, and to use an electrical pun, it was a shocking amount of money. And the third electrician came out and said, well, why don't you just put remotes on these units? So what he did was, and we're like, oh, so he bought 2 remotes. He attached these remotes up, the remote connectors to the fans and lights. He gave us the hand controls. Now it works perfectly. And it did not cost us $1,500 or whatever. And so to me, that's a reminder about don't start with implementation. Start with what are you trying to achieve and how are the different ways to achieve it. The first 2 electricians just wanted to implement what I wanted done. Oh, you want this moved? We'll move it, and here's what it costs. The third one's like, no, wait. What you really want is to be able to operate the fans from out here. Here's a better way to do that. And so the reason we start with strategy is, excuse me, we start with the client's goal. And then we ask ourselves, what's the best way to achieve that goal most efficiently for the client and for the people who will be impacted, rather than just assuming right away that what the person has asked for is the correct way to do it. And that way saves everybody time and money and increases the impact.
But then the challenge to that example will be, how do you find the right advice? So obviously you spoke to 2 electricians who are just trying to execute what you're trying to do. But then the third one, fortunately, are thinking to provide you with a simple solution that you can do right away and inexpensively. So how would you suggest people look for the advice? Sometimes we might not know the strategy. So we just say, people think we want more engagement, do a website. We want to reach out to our target audience, do a Google ad campaign. So how would we know what we don't know if we don't find good advice? So I think that's like a tricky question to ask, but want to see what you think.
Well, we don't know what we don't know if we don't ask any questions. And so my starting assumption about most things, particularly when I'm working with experts, is that I don't know, but I'm going to ask every possible question to find out. And it's important to challenge assumptions. So I taught graduate level writing at USC for 10 years. And I am a USC alum. And there were 10 years between when I graduated to when I went back to start teaching there. So I used to go try to park around campus when I was a student, and there was no place to park. And so I would pay for parking every time, which was prohibitively expensive when I was in grad school. I didn't have any money. And then when I went back to teach there, I was saying to one of my classes, I said, well, I have to pay for parking every time. I'm faculty here, but they don't pay for my parking. And somebody said, why don't you go park on that street over there? And I said, well, because you can't park there. And they said, no, you can. And I said, no, you can't. They said, you can. So after class, I drive around, and here's what had happened, Swire. The parking had been changed in those 10 years. It's hard to notice that things change. You can't stay on top of everything. You have to challenge your own assumptions. And so what we do here all the time is we challenge assumptions in a friendly way. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you do it for? How do you do it? What are you trying to do? How might you do it? Is there a way to make that better, et cetera? Just ask lots of friendly questions. And it's amazing what happens. What happens is you open up your options. Suddenly the optionality is wider. It's not yes or no, black or white, left or right, up or down. It's I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do, oh, look, I have lots of choices to make. And so you use the example of a Google campaign. Sure, one could do that, but we've had very successful campaigns of different sorts where we did not do a Google AdWords campaign. There are always more options.
Well, I think by you pointing out the example, I could think of one that, recently just happens in 12 months ago, it doesn't exist. It's Zoom meeting. Right now, we're so comfortable with our webcam setup. We are very comfortable in meetings that, I can have Zoom meetings with anyone in the world. Right. So for especially for smaller company out there, imagine you are trying to have 50 of your engaged prospect to listen to your presentation. Before, it will mean maybe renting a room, catering, lighting, a lot of printed material. But now, if you have good presentation, you can actually hop on Zoom. You have as much presentation skill as a big company. If you are able to do it digitally, then this is not available before. But within the past 12 months, we're all expert in Zoom meeting.
Exactly right. So we do a branding strategy lab here. And that's a thing that I've done. We've been in business almost 15 years, and I've done it before that. So I've been doing it for about 20 years. And it involved getting a room, getting people together, flying somewhere sometimes, or them flying in for sure, right? So as soon as this pandemic hit, we started to ask ourselves, how can we do it over Zoom? How can we do it virtually? What we did not do is say, oh, we can't do this now because we can't meet in person. That's what I'm talking about, the lack mentality that we try to avoid. We did not assume that now we couldn't do it. We asked ourselves, how can we do it? And the answer was we could move it onto Zoom. And Zoom's technology, and I'm not, I have no stock in Zoom. I'm not trying to push them, but your point is well taken. Zoom has improved their platform over the course of this pandemic, and Zoom has a virtual whiteboard. And so we've been able to make use of those tools to be able to do the things we're talking about.
Yeah, I think I have a new term that I've learned. It's called calendar marketing. So with templates that I use, I can actually now email it to a client. You can book me for a meeting. A Zoom meeting will generate by itself, and then we schedule a time, and then we meet. So I think that's saved me a lot of time. Instead of sending 5 emails back and forth, now I could achieve with one email template with everything that's on it. I think technology, like your example with the parking space, has changed the way that we do business.
I'm a child of the 1970s. I mean, those were really, I was born in the 60s, but the 1970s are when I really came of age. And I'm reminded every day of the technological advantages and all of the power at our fingertips that we didn't have then. And people think that prices do nothing but go up. I will tell you, in the 1970s, Xeroxing one page cost 25 cents. That was a lot of money in the 1970s. And now, of course, for my desktop laser printer, I can print all sorts of pages. I can connect with everybody in the world theoretically from my laptop, and the technological advances are amazing. And they become more affordable by the day. Most of us can afford it. So it's a very interesting time to be alive, and I'm very optimistic about all sorts of trends.
Yeah, I wanted to switch gears a little bit. I know
Mhm.
you have done a lot of branding for a company, and what is the difference between branding and positioning? We always use the word branding, but I think sometimes it's overused.
Yeah.
And can you touch on both and let us know the difference between the two?
Yes. So your brand is your overall identity. It's your look, it's your logo, it's your tagline, it's how you want people to think about you. It's who you are. Your positioning is your identity with regard to a specific target demographic, ideally, whom you are trying to target. So your positioning, and again, we use the who, what, where, when, why, and how, right? The great reporters' questions. Positioning is who am I doing this? Who am I? Who am I doing this for? Where would I find them? How do I talk about us? It's the core message of your place in the market related to the people who you hope will be doing business with you or supporting you. And then the brand is everything else that grows out of that positioning.
Okay, yeah, that's a great answer. And then I wanted to touch on networking because I know that you've been a board member for your local chamber of commerce, and
Hmm.
obviously you run a marketing agency that do a lot of digital marketing. So,
Hmm.
and I know that they don't really work with each other. People who believe in chamber of commerce think that networking works. If a digital marketing strategist, they think that it's all about your positioning on social media. So, how would
Hmm.
you rate each, and how, or you think that they could coexist and work with each other?
Well, what I would say to you is they're different environments, right? These things keep falling out today. I don't know why. They're different environments, and it's interesting. The next generation doesn't talk about going online. They're online all the time, and so they have a two-screen experience watching TV, let's say, or streaming. And so they'll watch the screen there, and then they have their iPhone here, and they're doing both at the same time,
Mhm.
right? Okay. Well, the same applies to what you just asked about. And so there's person to person networking through a chamber of commerce, which I very strongly believe in. And then there's digital marketing, which is another way to connect with a whole bunch of the same people and also a wider group of people. So when I joined the Burbank Chamber of Commerce, which was 2004, by the way, there was a guy named Harvey Brandman who has become a good friend of mine since here in town. So I've known Harvey now for 17 years. And Harvey could see I was new and asked me my name and then said, "Let me introduce you around." And so ultimately, because of Harvey, I got to know the city manager and then the mayor and the city council members and the business leaders and people running important nonprofits and all of those folks. And so for 17 years, I built a relationship based off of that first introduction. But at the same time, and I'll tell you, I had an executive committee meeting today for the Burbank Chamber of Commerce. I'm still on that board. I interact with most of these people digitally. I see them on social media. I see them in emails and such. So I don't know why we would artificially separate them. I think that those are linked. I have the good fortune to be local to you. So you and I are having this discussion today virtually. But at some point, I would look forward to you and I having lunch. I mean that, and so why would we create an artificial barrier between that?
Yeah, I think we actually connected not locally, but then on actually a podcast connecting website for hosts and guests.
Hmm.
So, we start out in the World Wide Web, but then we now bring it down to us somewhat locally, right? So I think,
Hmm.
um, how would you advise a company to, because obviously it takes time and effort and money to do each strategy. So, what will be your suggestion to develop a strategy for a particular business, or it really depends on what their goals are?
It does. So when we did a campaign for City of Santa Monica some years ago, as an example, we knew what they wanted. What they wanted to do was they were serving a lot of nonprofits in Santa Monica. They wanted people to have greater awareness that they were providing these services and to go use the services of the nonprofit. And so, and they also wanted training for what they were calling at the time at-risk youth in City of Santa Monica. So we put them both together. We trained the students in how to become young cub reporters. We trained them how to use social media and blogs. and to go out and report on those nonprofits. So there's the youth training. And then we put that all on, and that's person to person, as you'll hear. And then we put that all online where everybody in the city could hear about it. And part of that campaign was 3 local newspapers wrote about the campaign, and also local news. So we got a lot of publicity. The nonprofits were happy. And then to make sure all of the residents heard about it, we also did a door hanger campaign. Every residential doorknob in the city of Santa Monica got a bright yellow door hanger from the city about this program. And our thought at the time was, if you came home from work and you saw a bright yellow door hanger from your city on the doorknob, you would read that. It's like, what is it? It looks alarming. And what happened was the nonprofits were thrilled. They got a lot of press. They got a lot of attention. The city was thrilled because they're already funding this. They want people to make use of the nonprofit resources. The kids learned a lot. We taught them how to write. We taught them how to use all of the tools. And one of those kids got hired by the nonprofit that she went and reported on. So it was very fulfilling all around. And as you hear, it started with, what is the city trying to achieve? Who are the partners on it? What are the resources necessary? And then how do we put it all together? And so that was a custom developed strategy. So the ultimate answer to your question, of course, is every strategy has to be handcrafted to meet the needs of the client.
That's great. And I think our episode, I actually recorded in a very timely manner. Our stimulus just got, signed out by President Biden. And in one of the opportunities you mentioned in your notes for the show is you expect nonprofit and local government to see new funding through the next, couple of years. And then there are going to be investment that is going to make, obviously, to restoring jobs and rebuilding the economy. Can you please touch on and give us more advice on that, and how you would suggest nonprofit and local government agency can take advantage of this opportunity?
So here in Burbank, the Burbank Chamber of Commerce has put out a lot of information about how to participate. You want to check in with the county and your city, wherever you are, and I would recommend your Chamber of Commerce, and see what's available and how to participate. And yes, I think what the U.S. sadly has been lagging in infrastructure recently. And now we're entering an exciting time. We're actually going to get some infrastructure funding, because yes, infrastructure is roads and bridges, but infrastructure is also the nonprofit social service network, which is very important for mental health issues, for health clinics and such. There's a lot that nonprofits do, and I think they're going to get a shot in the arm from local government through the federal government to tackle a bunch of these issues. Now is an excellent time to plan for that. And the one meeting I had this morning, indeed, we're talking about, we think this certain amount of money is coming in to a certain municipality. What issues can we address with that funding?
Okay. And how would you suggest, smaller nonprofits to figure out their strategy to get the attention, maybe trying to get some of these funding that are available from the local governments?
I would say now is the time to think about how you would solve the problems that are most pressing that you are equipped to solve. And I would make sure that I was connected to the information about where funding is going to be and who your funders are. So the state has some agencies that fund nonprofits. Certainly counties do. Certainly cities do. You have to reach out and make sure you're getting that information, and make sure, work your network. If you know your assembly office, we have a terrific assemblywoman here that serves where we are. When there are opportunities, she notifies us. Certainly our county supervisor does as well. You just have to be connected. And that's the other reason I go back to chambers of commerce. Chambers of commerce are very powerful connectors.
Yeah, you find out different opportunities that are happening around your area. For example, from I belong to the LA Chamber. I learned that from the chamber that they are thinking about renovating, rebuilding, upgrading the Union Station in downtown LA. So it's a massive, development. And also, if you've been into LA recently, you know that we are doing a lot of, construction projects, even by the local government or from private sector. So with the chamber, they actually have different meeting. You can actually meet with the developer, sometimes some cities and government officials, and to talk about their project. So what that means to a nonprofit or a small business is you can see where the city and the governments are heading, and then you know that there are big companies that will be following along. Like what you said, Lee. How can I make myself useful in those projects? Maybe you can on some, maybe some you cannot, but then definitely you can meet a lot of good contact in a more traditional way. Then you can go to the digital marketing stage, and you can find more people. But then with the Chamber of Commerce, it's more focused, it's more local, and then you meet a lot of people who are great networkers, better than what you are right now, that are willing to open the doors for you within the chamber.
The human beings by nature are collaborative. We don't really think about it that way, right? We look at the history of war and discord and fight and struggle. But by and large, throughout our history, human beings are cooperative. And so if you approach people in an upbeat way, and you're trying to be a problem solver and an opportunity seizer, how do I seize an opportunity? How do I help somebody? How do I help you? How do I work with you? It's all better from there. It all works pretty well. There's only a very I've been around the country. I've been in other countries. There's only a really little narrow sliver of people who are unpleasant. Most people are good people, and they just want to work together. And now we have some new funding that I think is going to help solve a lot of problems. It's an exciting time.
Okay, Lee. So wanted to ask you for your final thoughts. Can you tie it in all together, and then maybe give us a couple of tips to encouragement? And then one is also ask you, if viewer want to get in touch with you, what will be the best way?
Yeah, sure. So my suggestion with everything, it's really 5 steps. It's set goals, measure, now you're running a campaign, measure, adjust, succeed, and then set new goals. And whether it's your personal life, I'm married with 3 children, whether it's your personal life, your professional life, if you set goals, you measure the improvement, you make adjustments, because things can always be made better, right? Something's working and something isn't. You succeed, and then you set new ones. It's just a recipe for success, whatever it is you're trying to do. And we all have our ups and downs, right? You have a day where things aren't going so well. You know what? Give yourself a break on those days. It's okay. The next day is a new day. Start all over. It's fine.
Okay.
That's always my advice. I just wish people the best all the time.
And what would be the best way to reach out to you?
Best way to reach out to me is through Counterintuity. You go to the Counterintuity website. There's a contact form. I love to talk to people. Anybody who's listening, if they have a problem or an opportunity they'd like to talk around for 20 minutes or so, I'd love to hear from them, and I'd be happy to give them some time, and we'll see what we can figure out.
Okay, thank you so much, Lee, for your wonderful information. And I do see that there are opportunities out there, and hopefully let's all plan our goals and let's go get those opportunities.
Thank you, Swire. It's a real opportunity, and I look forward to sharing lunch with you at some point.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.